Hello and welcome. You can call me your sleep guide, your quiet storyteller for the night. I'm here to gently lead you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Each night, I'll share with you a soft, thoughtful story rooted in Buddhist wisdom. Stories not to awaken the mind, but to calm the heart. This is the very first story of our channel. So tonight, just lie down, close your eyes, and let this tale carry you home. Home to stillness, home to rest, home to yourself. Tonight, we begin a gentle journey. Let your body settle into stillness. Let your breath soften. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to change. Just listen and rest. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a quiet forest. The sun is setting. The sky glows with soft gold and deep purple. Birds are calling gently. The leaves move with the breeze. And far in the distance, a bell rings. Let that sound guide your heart. With every breath, let go. Let go of worry. Let go of thought. Let go of needing to understand. Let this story carry you. In a quiet corner of the world, far from cities and noise, there was a village nestled between hills and forests. The people there lived simply. They rose with the sun, worked with the land, and rested with the stars. In this peaceful village lived a blind man named Ananda. He was born without sight, but those who knew him said he could hear more deeply than any other. He knew the sound of every footstep, the rustle of each kind of leaf, and the way the wind changed just before it rained. Ananda did not complain about his blindness. He listened. He felt. He lived in a world of sounds, textures, and scents. Every morning, he would sit outside his small house and greet the day with stillness. Children would pass by, and he would smile, recognizing them by their footsteps alone. Birds called to one another in the trees, and he could tell which bird was speaking, and whether it was hungry, angry, or simply singing for the joy of it. Though Ananda could not see, he could feel the truth of things. He once said, "The eyes can distract, but the heart sees clearly." The villagers respected him. Some came to him for advice. Others simply sat near him in silence, finding peace in his presence. He had a gentle way of being, like still water or a soft breeze. And yet, within him lived a quiet longing, a wish to understand something deeper, something more. One evening, Ananda overheard travelers passing through the village. They spoke of a man unlike any other, a teacher who had awakened to a truth beyond suffering. "He is called the Buddha," one said. "They say he sees not with eyes alone, but with wisdom." Ananda sat quietly that night, long after the voices faded. He did not know what the Buddha looked like, but he wondered what it would feel like to be near such a being, one who saw with the heart. That night, beneath a sky full of stars he could not see, Ananda made a vow. "If there is such a man," he whispered, "then I will find him, not to look upon him, but to feel what he knows." Ananda awoke before dawn. Though he could not see the sky brighten, he could feel the shift in the air, the hush just before birds begin their morning songs. He sat up slowly, listening. The world was still wrapped in silence, as if holding its breath. Somewhere far away, a rooster called out, and then, like ripples in a pond, other sounds began to appear. A soft rustle of leaves, the tap-tap of someone fetching water, the creak of a wooden gate. He stood, ran his hands along the wooden post beside his bed, and found his walking stick. This morning, he did not sit in his usual spot to listen. Something in his chest was moving, an unsettled wind. The words from the night before were still alive in his mind. He sees not with eyes alone, but with wisdom. What did that mean? Was it possible to know the world more deeply than through vision? Ananda had never felt angry about his blindness, but now he realized there had always been a quiet hunger within him, not to see colors or shapes, but to understand, to touch what others call truth. He walked slowly through the village, greeting it not with eyes, but with his presence. The houses were still asleep. Dogs yawned on doorsteps. He passed by the old neem tree where the children usually played. Even the tree seemed to listen to his steps today. When he reached the river, he sat down on a flat rock. The water whispered as it moved. He let his fingers trail through the current. "What do you know that I do not?" he whispered to the river. It said nothing, and yet it spoke. In its movement, it carried something, a stillness beyond words, a lesson that could not be taught, only received. That day, Ananda did not return home. He walked past the edge of the village to where the narrow dirt road curved into the hills. He had heard of this road, but never stepped onto it. For the first time, his feet moved not from routine, but from calling. Every few steps, he stopped to listen. He heard the murmur of wind in the grass. He felt the warmth of the sun touch his face like a gentle hand. And in these simple sensations, he felt something awaken, like a door opening inward. A passing farmer saw him and asked, "Ananda, where are you going so early?" Ananda paused. He smiled, then answered softly, "To find the one who sees with the heart." The farmer said nothing more. Something in Ananda's voice was different, sure yet peaceful. And so the farmer watched him go, walking slowly, gently, yet with a kind of purpose the village had never seen in him before. As the path rose into the hills, the sounds of the village faded. Birds replaced human voices. The earth under his feet felt new, not because it had changed, but because he had. He recalled his childhood, how he used to sit by the elders and listen to the old stories. Tales of sages and kings, of suffering and awakening. Back then, they were just stories. Now he felt them as possible truths, not faraway fables, but whispers from within. If the Buddha is real, Ananda thought, then perhaps he does not need to be seen. Perhaps he is like the wind, felt more clearly when we stop trying to hold it. That thought settled in his chest like a warm coal. It did not burn, it glowed, a quiet flame of faith. By noon, Ananda rested beneath a tree. He ate some dry rice and a few nuts he had taken from home. He drank from a nearby stream and washed his face, feeling the cool water cleanse not just his skin, but his thoughts. As the day continued, he walked further than he ever had. The world did not seem large or unknown. It felt close, like a friend who had been patiently waiting for him to notice. And all the while, his inner voice said, not in words, but in feeling, "Keep going. This path is not found by the eyes. It is felt by the soul." The path beneath Ananda's feet was narrow and uneven, made of packed earth and scattered stones. Each step required care. But he did not hurry. With his walking stick in hand and a steady breath, he moved with a rhythm that matched the quiet of the morning. The forest welcomed him slowly. It began with a soft thickening of the air, a change in scent, from dust and dry grass to something greener, more alive. The chirp of insects replaced the sounds of village tools. Leaves whispered like gentle voices, brushing against one another. Though he had never been in this forest before, Ananda felt no fear. Every few steps he paused to listen, not just to sounds, but to the silence beneath them. There was a kind of presence in that stillness, not empty, but full. It felt like being watched, not with eyes, but with kindness. The roots of old trees crossed his path like sleeping arms. He felt them with his feet and stepped over slowly, as if honoring their age. Occasionally, he stopped to place his hand on a tree trunk, feeling the cool texture of bark, the slow pulse of life within. With each pause, he breathed deeply. The forest became a teacher. It said nothing, but it showed everything. A fallen branch reminded him of impermanence. The sudden flight of a bird reminded him that all beings long for freedom. Around midday, the sun above filtered through the canopy in dappled warmth. Ananda found a flat patch of earth near a stream and sat down. He drank, washed his face, and ate some rice from a cloth pouch. As he sat, he whispered to himself, "The journey is not to find something new. It is to remember something forgotten." A soft breeze carried the scent of jasmine. He tilted his head to follow it. Somewhere nearby, a squirrel chattered. The sound made him smile. He imagined its small hands, its flicking tail, the quickness of life in its chest. Even without eyes, he thought, "I can see this." He stood again, feeling stronger. Not because his body had changed, but because his purpose had grown roots. Every footstep was no longer a movement forward. It was a prayer, not spoken, not even thought, just lived. As the path curved deeper into the woods, it narrowed further. Vines reached across it like playful children. Thorn bushes brushed against his robe. He did not mind. He whispered, "Thank you," each time something touched him. By evening, the forest grew quiet again. The wind stilled. Even the birds seemed to pause. Ananda found a patch of grass beneath the tall tree and sat down once more. The ground was soft. His back found the support of the trunk. He folded his legs and rested his hands on his knees. There was no fear of being alone, only peace. He let his breath slow. He listened, not with effort, but with openness. And in that listening, he heard something rise within, a memory perhaps, or a voice without words. It said, "You are not walking into the forest. You are walking into yourself. And with that, Ananda closed his eyes, though they had always been closed, and let the night embrace him like a blanket of stars he could not see, but had always known were there. The next morning came slowly, carried on the back of a cool mist that settled over the forest floor. Ananda awoke with dew clinging to his robe. The sounds of waking nature surrounded him. A bird preening its feathers, the distant tapping of a woodpecker, leaves shifting softly above. He breathed in the dampness, earthy and thick, and smiled. He stood carefully, his muscles stiff from sleeping on the ground. The tree that had supported him during the night stood tall and silent. Ananda placed his hand on its trunk in gratitude, whispering, "Thank you for keeping watch." With steady steps, he resumed his path. The forest was denser here. Vines hung lower, and the roots grew more tangled. Each step was slower, more cautious. The earth had turned soft beneath his feet. Recent rain had left parts of the trail muddy. It was not long before his foot slipped. The fall was sudden and quiet. His walking stick flew from his hand, and his body landed in the thick mud. For a moment there was only stillness, then a soft grunt of surprise, not pain. Ananda lay there, his hands sinking into the cool earth. He did not rise immediately. Instead, he stayed down, listening. A bird cried above. A leaf dropped onto his shoulder. The mud wrapped around him like a cradle. There was no shame, no fear, only breath, only being. Then came a quiet voice from within, not spoken, but understood. Even the earth receives you without judgment. He sat up slowly. His robe was smeared with dirt, his hands wet. He searched for his stick, but could not find it. Instead of panicking, he placed his palms on the ground and breathed. If I cannot walk, then I will sit. If I cannot move forward, then I will be still. He remembered something his grandmother used to say, "When the world pushes you down, do not fight to rise. First, learn to feel where you have landed." So Ananda sat in the mud, beneath the canopy of trees, and let himself feel everything. The cold, the weight, the soft pull of the earth. It was not failure, it was learning. After a time, he wiped his hands on a patch of moss and stood again. The mud clung to him, but he did not brush it away. It was part of the path now. With hands outstretched, he felt forward until his fingers brushed against wood. His stick, waiting. He picked it up and held it close, not just as a tool, but as a companion who had also fallen. The next steps were slow, but steadier. Ananda moved not to prove strength, but to honor the softness that had held him. Each root he stepped over, he acknowledged. Each patch of mud, he greeted. That afternoon, he found a clearing bathed in golden light. He laid his robe across a rock to dry and sat bare-chested in the sun, letting warmth soak into his skin. Birds danced in the branches above, and he listened without effort, without expectation. He whispered, "Thank you, mud. Thank you, roots. Thank you, fall." Because in falling, he had learned something deeper than balance. He had learned how to rest in the arms of the earth. The following morning, the forest shimmered with new light. Sunbeams poured through the canopy in delicate columns, and the air smelled of damp leaves and flowering vines. Ananda stirred from his rest and smiled to himself. The aches in his joints were still there, but they no longer felt like burdens. They were reminders of a body that had carried him faithfully. He rose and washed his hands in a nearby stream. Birds called to each other in playful rhythms, and he let their songs fill the spaces within him. Today felt different. The forest did not feel like something he was passing through. It felt like a companion walking beside him. Ananda resumed his journey, letting each step be as slow and mindful as the breath itself. He touched tree trunks as he passed, nodding in thanks. He did not know where the path led, but he no longer needed to know. By mid-morning, as he moved through a narrow passage lined with ferns, he heard a new sound, a giggle, light and clear like a bell in the mist. He paused. It came again, closer this time. "Are you a traveler?" a young voice asked. Ananda turned his head toward the sound. "I suppose I am," he said gently. "And who are you?" "I'm Maha." The child's steps moved lightly over the earth. "You look like you need help." Ananda chuckled. "Do I?" "You have mud on your robe," she said, "and you missed the turn. The path is this way." There was no judgment in her tone, only cheer. Ananda bowed his head in her direction. "Then I thank you, Meha. Will you walk with me a while?" "Yes," she said, and slipped her small hand into his. Together, they walked. Meha described the things she saw. There are blue flowers growing in a circle, she said, and a tree with bark that peels like paper, and butterflies, yellow ones, dancing in the sun. Ananda listened, his heart wide open. Her voice painted the world around him, that not with details, but with wonder. Why are you walking alone? Meha asked. I'm not sure I am anymore, Ananda replied. But I began this journey to find someone. Who? A teacher, a wise one. Oh, Meha said thoughtfully. Well, you seem wise too. You listen a lot. Most grown-ups don't. Ananda smiled. Sometimes wisdom starts with silence. They walked for hours. When Ananda grew tired, they rested beneath a tree. Meha picked leaves and described their shapes to him. This one is long like a feather. This one looks like a hand. When they resumed walking, Meha guided him gently around roots and rocks. Her steps were light but careful, as if she understood the forest and how to move through it. Ananda realized something as they walked. This child, with her laughter and simplicity, was teaching him more than any words could. She did not explain the forest. She revealed it. That evening, they found a small glade where the sunlight lingered. Birds settled into nests and the air cooled. Will you stay here tonight? Meha asked. Yes, and you? I live nearby, she said, but I come here to walk sometimes, to listen. Then perhaps we will meet again, Ananda said. Perhaps, she answered, and with a wave he could feel more than see, she slipped away into the trees. Alone once more, Ananda sat quietly in the glade. The forest no longer felt like a stranger. It felt like Meha, curious, gentle, full of light. And he thought, sometimes the path appears not beneath our feet, but beside us, in the form of a friend. The morning came with birdsong and the gentle hush of leaves swaying in the early light. Ananda stirred slowly, the memory of Meha still warm in his thoughts. He sat up, stretched his arms, and listened. The forest was quiet, but not empty. It held the kind of silence that welcomed listening. He stood and resumed his path. The ground felt different beneath his feet now, more familiar, as if it remembered him too. But as he walked deeper into the forest, the trees grew closer together, the light dimmer, and the sounds more distant. After some time, Ananda paused. The air had changed. It was thicker, and the breeze no longer touched his skin. He turned his head slowly from side to side, listening. The birdsong was gone. So was the sound of water he had heard earlier. He took a few more steps, but something inside him hesitated. Had he wandered off the path? He knelt and placed his palm to the earth. The ground was soft, covered in leaves. No sign of the path remained, no clear direction, just forest. A feeling of uncertainty stirred in his chest. He reached for a nearby tree, leaned against it, and breathed deeply. In the stillness, the old voice of fear began to rise. What if you are lost? What if you never find your way back? But then another voice, quieter, gentler, came forward. What if this too is part of the path? He sat at the base of the tree and let his hands rest on his knees. He listened, not for birds or footsteps or water, but for what was within. After a while, he heard something. Footsteps, small, light, familiar. You went the wrong way, Meha said, her voice soft and playful. But I knew you might. That's why I waited. Ananda turned his head toward her voice and smiled. I thought I had lost the path. You did, she replied, but not forever. She took his hand. Come, let's go back. I know another way. Together they retraced his steps. Meha pointed out landmarks as they moved. A fallen log shaped like a sleeping deer. A tree with twisted roots. The scent of wild ginger in the air. How do you know the forest so well? Ananda asked. Because I walk it slowly, Meha answered. And I look with all my senses, not just my eyes. Ananda smiled. That is something I understand. When they returned to the path, it felt wider somehow, as if the forest itself had stepped aside to welcome them. They walked in silence for a time, the only sound their footsteps and the occasional rustle of leaves. Then Meha said, sometimes the path disappears, not because it's gone, but because we forget how to feel it. Ananda nodded. And sometimes someone helps us remember. They stopped by a stream where the sunlight sparkled through the branches. Meha released his hand. You can go from here, she said. You're not lost now. Will I see you again? Ananda asked. Maybe, maybe not. But you'll remember how it felt to walk with a friend. That will be enough. And just like that, she was gone, like a breeze slipping between trees. Ananda stood still for a long while. Then he turned, stepped forward, and smiled. The path was beneath him once more, but more importantly, it was within him too. The sun was lowering, casting long shadows across the path as Ananda stepped through a break in the forest. The ground softened beneath his feet and the air grew cooler. A hush settled over the trees, the kind of silence that held reverence. He could feel it. Something had changed. There were no grand gates, no voices announcing arrival, no sense of incense or bells ringing. Yet Ananda knew he had arrived somewhere sacred. The earth beneath him felt smooth, worn by many footsteps before his. The trees here were ancient. Their roots reached wide and deep, and their branches held the sky like open hands. He stopped walking. His body, without thought, knew it was time to be still. A breeze passed over him, soft and warm. In its wake, he felt a presence. Not someone approaching, but something already here. A stillness so complete, it seemed to radiate from the very ground. He lowered himself slowly and sat cross-legged beneath a tall tree. Its bark was textured like old skin. Its leaves rustled like quiet breath. He touched its base with his fingers and whispered, "Is this the tree?" There was no answer, and none was needed. He placed his palms face up on his knees and let his breath guide him. The forest around him fell into silence, not the emptiness of absence, but the fullness of presence. And in that silence he knew this was the Bodhi Grove. He did not see the Buddha, but he felt something deep and unmoving, like the center of a still lake. A peace not born of comfort, but of understanding. A vast quiet that welcomed everything and rejected nothing. He breathed in, he breathed out. Each breath became a step without movement. Time did not stop, but it no longer mattered. Ananda bowed his head. He whispered, "Thank you for letting me arrive." And somewhere within the silence, not as sound but as knowing, a response echoed, "You were never far." Ananda remained seated beneath the great tree, his hands resting lightly on his knees, his breath steady. The air around him was still, yet charged with presence, a kind of sacred hush that asked for nothing and offered everything. He did not expect a sound, yet one came. Footsteps, bare and slow, not the hurried steps of a traveler or the light steps of a child. These were deliberate, grounded, each step like a bell, not heard, but felt in the bones. They stopped nearby. Then came silence again, but it was not the silence of absence, it was the silence of waiting. Ananda inclined his head. He did not need to ask who it was. The presence itself was the answer. A voice spoke, soft, deep, and clear. "You have come a long way," Ananda smiled. "Not in distance, but in surrender." There was a pause. A breeze moved through the leaves above. "Why have you come?" the voice asked. "To understand," Ananda said. "Not through eyes, but through something deeper." The voice replied, "Then close your eyes and open your awareness." Ananda gently turned his palms upward and closed his eyes fully, not out of darkness, but out of devotion. He listened, not with ears, with being. The Buddha sat beside him. There was no need for words, but words came, like rain falling on thirsty soil. "Many seek to see me," the Buddha said. "They look for signs, for light, for form. But you came not to see, but to feel. That is why you have found me." Ananda bowed his head. "I was afraid that not seeing would mean not knowing." "Seeing can deceive," the Buddha said, "but stillness tells the truth." They sat in silence together. Ananda felt no need to speak, but thoughts rose like petals on a breeze, and the Buddha answered them without them being spoken. "Why do I suffer?" Ananda thought. "Because you forget that nothing is yours to hold," the Buddha replied. "Why do I fear the unknown?" "Because you believe you must walk it alone." "And what brings peace?" "Trust. Not in the path ahead, but in the foot that takes the step." Tears welled in Ananda's eyes, not of sorrow, but of recognition. "Is it truly so simple?" he asked aloud. The Buddha smiled. "It is not easy, but it is simple." They sat through the changing light as day softened into dusk. Birds quieted. The world seemed to exhale. Ananda turned his face toward the voice. "What should I do now?" "Rest," the Buddha said. "Not from walking, but from searching. Let your breath be your path. Let presence be your guide." Ananda bowed once more, his body folded gently like a leaf coming to rest. And in that sacred space beneath the Bodhi tree, Ananda did not feel blind. He felt seen, not by eyes, but by truth itself. The air beneath the Bodhi tree held a stillness so complete that even the breeze seemed to bow before it. Ananda sat with the Buddha, their silence deeper than words. And within that silence, something in Ananda began to soften. He did not speak, but the Buddha knew. The burden was not on his back or in his hands, but in his chest. wrapped in memory and quiet sorrow. The Buddha's voice came like a soft bell in a distant temple. You carry something that does not belong to you. Ananda breathed in. I don't know how to put it down. The Buddha said, you have carried it so long, it has become part of your shape, but it is not part of your truth. Ananda felt his fingers curl slightly in his lap, as if holding something invisible. The Buddha continued, what is it made of? Ananda answered slowly, regret and guilt. I regret not being more than I am, and I feel guilt for not seeing, for needing help, for slowing others down. The words trembled as they emerged, fragile and unpracticed. The Buddha did not interrupt. He let the truth rise like mist from warm earth. There is no shame in being helped, the Buddha said, just as a tree does not apologize for leaning on another when the wind grows strong. Ananda felt something loosen, but I have always been the one who needed. The Buddha replied, and because you needed, others learned to give. Your presence was not a burden, it was an invitation. Ananda's breath caught. The idea was foreign, yet familiar, like hearing a song he'd forgotten he once knew. The Buddha spoke again. Many carry invisible burdens. They are not weights of wood or stone. They are the stories we tell ourselves, stories of not being enough, of always being behind. But you are not behind. You are here, and that is enough. A single tear escaped Ananda's eye. Can I really let it go? Only if you stop calling it yours. The Buddha said, let it be what it was, a moment, not a chain. Ananda inhaled, and as he exhaled, he imagined setting down a satchel he had never seen but always felt. It made no sound when it landed, and yet the silence that followed was profound. The Buddha placed a hand gently on Ananda's shoulder. No words passed between them, yet everything was said. The weight that had once bent his heart was no longer there, not because it had been taken, but because he had stopped gripping it. In the fading light, Ananda sat a little taller, not prouder, just lighter. For the first time in a long time, he felt not like a man missing something, but like one returning to wholeness. The next morning, a soft breeze drifted through the grove, carrying with it the scent of wild blossoms and sun-warmed bark. Ananda awoke with the earth beneath him and the canopy above, feeling as though he had not just rested, but been cradled. His body ached, but the aches felt different now, less like resistance and more like reminders. The Buddha sat nearby, silent as stone, yet full of presence. Ananda did not speak at first. He simply sat, letting his breath rise and fall like waves on a quiet shore. Eventually, he turned slightly toward the Buddha and asked, why does the body feel like both a home and a stranger? The Buddha replied, because we treat it as a possession, not a guest house. Ananda tilted his head, curious. The Buddha continued, your body is not you. It is a place in which experiences come and go. Just as a guest house welcomes travelers, joy, sorrow, hunger, fatigue, pleasure, pain, your body receives them all. But they are not permanent. None of them stay. Ananda let the words settle. He placed his hand on his chest. So when I ache, I should not resist it? You may feel it, but you do not have to fight it, the Buddha said. A guest who knocks loudly is still a guest. Let the pain enter, offer it a seat. When it is ready, it will leave. Ananda thought of all the times he had cursed his limbs for tiring, his back for hurting, his legs for failing to carry him far. He whispered, I have treated my body like a broken tool. The Buddha's voice was gentle, and yet it has carried you here. It has bent when needed, endured when asked. What if you bowed to it as it has bowed to you? Ananda felt a warmth grow in his chest. He placed both hands on his knees and bowed his head. Thank you, he said, not to the air, not to the Buddha, but to the body he had worn like a burden. In that moment, his breath deepened. His spine straightened not from effort, but from peace. He felt not the need to escape his body, but to inhabit it with kindness. The Buddha said, when you stop trying to own the body, you begin to dwell in it fully. You stop being its master or its prisoner. You become its friend. And so they sat, man and teacher, beneath the vast tree, and Ananda felt, for the first time, truly at home, not in a place, but in the vessel he had been given. His body, imperfect and worn, was no longer an obstacle. It was the guest house, and he, its humble and grateful host. Later that day, as the shadows stretched and the sunlight softened, Ananda sat in stillness beneath the Bodhi tree. The quiet surrounded him like a cloak, yet within that quiet, something stirred. A dull ache throbbed in his lower back. It was not new, he had carried it for years, but now, in this space of awareness, it rose like a visitor knocking at the door. He shifted slightly and winced. The Buddha, seated nearby, turned his face gently toward him. "Pain?" he asked. Ananda nodded. "Yes, it returns often. I try to ignore it, but it always finds me." The Buddha was silent for a moment, then said, "There is pain, and there is the story we wrap around it. One is the fire, the other is our hands grasping at the flames." Ananda listened. "So pain is natural," he said slowly, "but suffering is our response?" "Suffering is the second arrow," the Buddha replied. "The first arrow is the ache, the second is the thought. This should not be happening to me." Ananda considered this. "So if I feel the pain but stop resisting it, then it passes through you instead of getting trapped within you," the Buddha said. "Pain knocks. If you open the door, it walks in and, in time, walks out. But if you bar the door and shout at it to leave, it stays." Ananda closed his eyes. He brought his attention to the ache in his back. He did not push it away. He did not wish it gone. He simply let it be. The sensation was still there, but something shifted. It no longer ruled him. It was no longer a tyrant. It was a signal, a guest, a teacher. The Buddha said, "Pain is the body's way of speaking. Listen to it, not as an enemy, but as a guide. It shows you where you hold tension, where you hold fear, where you have not yet softened." Ananda took a slow breath. With the exhale, he let go of the thought that pain was punishment. He saw it instead as a messenger. And in that seeing, a portion of the weight lifted. The ache remained, but now it was not a wall, it was a doorway. And through that doorway, Ananda stepped into a gentler understanding of himself. As twilight folded gently over the grove, a soft hush embraced the world. Ananda remained seated, the ache in his body now quieter, as if soothed by understanding rather than forced into silence. He turned slightly toward the Buddha and asked, "May I ask a question?" The Buddha gave a simple nod. "I have never seen a face, not a color, not a sunrise. I have walked through life guided by sound and touch and scent. But people speak of beauty as something seen. Have I missed something essential?" The Buddha's response came slowly, like a stream finding its way around stone. "Sight is only one kind of knowing. It reveals form but not essence. There are those with perfect eyes who do not see what matters, and there are those without sight who see what cannot be shown." Ananda listened, heart open. "But I have always wondered, what is a sunrise? What is a face filled with love?" The Buddha smiled. "A sunrise is the feeling of warmth returning to your skin after a cold night. It is the sound of light waking birds and stirring leaves. It is hope rising without words and a face filled with love. You have known it in the way a voice softens when it speaks your name, in the pause someone takes before offering you their hand, in the silence shared without explanation." Ananda breathed deeply. "So beauty is not bound to the eyes." "No," said the Buddha. "Beauty is what happens when the heart recognizes itself in the world." They sat quietly. The night deepened. Fireflies blinked in the distance. Ananda said, "Then what I truly seek has always been near, not ahead of me, but within me." "Yes," the Buddha replied. "You have not missed beauty, you have touched its root." And in that moment, Ananda understood. To see is not merely to witness light, but to feel truth without needing eyes. The night passed gently, and morning returned with its quiet offerings. Dew clung to the leaves like pearls, and the air was cool and still. Ananda sat beside the Buddha, both in silence, the kind that wrapped around thought and softened it. After some time, Ananda spoke. "Everything changes, I know this, but why do I still feel sorrow when something ends?" The Buddha answered with calm clarity. "Because the heart does not resist change. It resists the idea of loss, and yet nothing is truly lost. It only transforms." Ananda nodded slowly. "I remember the sound of my mother's voice when I was a child. I can no longer hear it in the air, but it echoes within me." "Is that what you mean?" "Yes," said the Buddha. "Like a river that flows beyond sight, it is still part of the water that touches your feet today. The past is not gone. It becomes what you carry in presence." A breeze stirred the trees. Ananda listened to its rise and fall. "So I should not hold on to things as they are?" "Hold them gently," the Buddha said. "Love them while they are near, but do not bind them. Let them come, let them go. That is the rhythm of peace." Ananda lowered his head. "But sometimes I fear the change. I fear not knowing what comes next." "You fear it," the Buddha said, because you believe you must control it. But when you meet change with curiosity instead of fear, it becomes a teacher, not a threat. The sun rose higher, casting shifting shadows across the ground. Ananda watched the warmth move across his hands, then vanish, then return. Even this light, he said, is never still. Nothing living is, said the Buddha. Stillness is not in the world around you. It is in how you meet its motion. And so Ananda sat, not trying to grasp the moment, but allowing it to pass over him like wind over grass. For the first time, he felt the movement of life not as something to hold, but as something to honor. And in that honoring, he understood. Change was not his enemy. It was the shape of life breathing. The wind picked up that afternoon, carrying the scent of distant rain and the song of rustling leaves. Ananda remained seated beneath the old tree, his breathing calm, his posture open. Yet inside him, a thought turned slowly, like a stone in the stream. He looked toward the Buddha and said, even though I understand that change is natural, I still find myself wanting to hold the reins, to shape the path, to know what comes next. The Buddha did not answer right away. He looked upward, toward the sky where clouds gathered and separated without command. Then he spoke. Control is the illusion we build when we are afraid to meet the unknown with trust. It gives the mind comfort, but it burdens the heart. Ananda nodded. But how do I move without trying to direct everything? Without fearing the misstep? The Buddha replied, by remembering that walking itself is enough. The destination matters less than the presence in each step. Release the need to steer and let the path carry you. Ananda closed his eyes and felt the impulse within him, the urge to anticipate, to plan, to calculate. It was subtle but persistent, like a tension beneath still water. I have spent much of my life trying to be ready for what I cannot see, he said, to prevent pain, to avoid shame, to prove I am capable. And yet, said the Buddha, you are here, not because you controlled every moment, but because life allowed you forward. A silence stretched between them, soft but full. Then the Buddha continued, the lotus does not command the water to be still. It grows because it surrenders to both the calm and the ripple. Ananda took a breath, slow and deep. So letting go is not giving up. No, said the Buddha. Letting go is giving in to the truth that you were never alone on the path and never truly in charge of its shape. A light rain began to fall, just a whisper on the leaves. Ananda lifted his face toward the sky. He did not move. He let the drops touch him, cool and uninvited, and in doing so he felt no fear, no resistance, only the quiet joy of not needing to hold the sky in his hands. The rain passed quietly, leaving behind a cool hush and the soft scent of damp earth. Ananda remained beneath the tree, droplets clinging to his robe, glistening in the scattered sunlight that now filtered through the canopy above. Across the clearing, a single lotus bloomed in a shallow pool, its petals wide and still, untouched by the passing storm. Ananda turned his face toward it, though he could not see it. There is something here, he whispered. The Buddha nodded. A lotus opened by the rain. I did not search for it, Ananda said, but I feel its presence. The Buddha replied, that is the nature of certain truths. They bloom not when you chase them, but when you are still enough to notice. Ananda breathed in slowly, letting the moment expand around him. All my life, I have been taught to strive, to seek to improve, but this feels like it appeared without effort. Because it did, said the Buddha. Some flowers are not meant to be found, they are meant to find you. Ananda let the words move through him like ripples on water. So I need not chase every answer? No, the Buddha said. You need only to be fully present. The flower does not require your pursuit, only your awareness. Ananda rested his hands on his lap. The stillness around him felt generous, as though the world itself was offering its beauty without condition. This presence, he said, feels more real than anything I've ever tried to achieve, because it is not built on effort, the Buddha said, but on allowing. When you cease reaching, the truth has space to arrive. Ananda sat in silence, the unseen flower glowing quietly in his awareness. And for the first time, he understood that what was most beautiful did not need to be possessed, only received. The next morning, the air was crisp, and the path beneath Ananda's feet felt firm and welcoming. The Buddha rose beside him, and without a word, they began to walk. Step by step through the woods and along a gentle ridge, their movement was slow and unhurried, like the rhythm of a calm breath. Ananda used no stick this time. His feet were bare, his steps mindful. He listened to the earth with his soles, letting each stone, each root, each blade of grass speak its quiet language. The Buddha walked a few paces ahead, guiding with silence. Ananda did not need direction. He was not following a trail. He was following a presence. Birds called from the trees. Leaves rustled with stories the wind carried. The world no longer felt like a mystery to be solved, but like a companion to be trusted. Ananda whispered, "I do not see the path, but I feel it." The Buddha replied softly, "That is all you ever needed." They continued through a narrow grove where sunlight streamed in golden shafts. Ananda reached out and touched the air as if it were fabric. "So much of my life," he said. "I moved with caution, not from care, but from fear. I was afraid of falling, of failing, of being left behind." The Buddha answered, "Fear narrows the path, but trust widens it. When you walk in fear, the ground feels distant. When you walk in trust, it rises to meet you." Ananda paused. "And if I walk in trust and still stumble?" "Then you learn that falling is not the end of the journey. It is part of how we remember to listen more deeply." They came upon a clearing bathed in golden light. The Buddha stopped, and so did Ananda. No words passed between them. None were needed. Ananda felt his chest expand, not from breath alone, but from freedom. The kind of freedom that comes not from escape, but from arrival. He smiled. "Even without eyes, I can walk freely." The Buddha placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Because you are no longer walking to see, you are walking to be." The afternoon sun leaned gently over the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the forest floor. Ananda walked slowly beside the Buddha, their footsteps nearly soundless on the leaf-covered path. The forest no longer felt like a place to pass through, but a home, quiet, vast, and accepting. After a time, Ananda spoke, his voice low and steady. "When I first left my village, I believed I was setting out to find someone, to discover something. But now, I wonder if what I sought was never truly missing." The Buddha walked in silence for a moment, then replied, "The seeker and the sought are never far apart, but it takes walking to understand that." Ananda felt the truth of those words settle in his chest like a stone, not heavy, but grounded. "So what happens when the searching ends?" he asked. The Buddha smiled softly. "Then the living begins." A breeze rustled through the leaves, and Ananda tilted his head toward the sound. "I have spent so long believing that the next answer, the next teaching, the next step would complete me. But each time I found something, it led to more questions, until now." The Buddha paused beside a large tree, placing a hand on its trunk. "Questions are not the problem," he said. "Attachment to the search is. You are allowed to stop chasing and begin being." Ananda breathed deeply, letting go of the subtle tension he hadn't noticed still clinging to his thoughts. "But if I am no longer seeking, what guides me?" The Buddha replied, "Trust, stillness, presence. When you stop searching, the moment reveals its fullness. You are no longer measuring distance, you are meeting what is here." Ananda felt a quiet joy rise within him. It was not excitement or triumph, but something simpler, a peaceful return. "I do not feel lost anymore," he said. "Not because I've arrived, but because I've stopped running." "Then you are truly free," said the Buddha. And as the light deepened and the air cooled, they walked on, not in pursuit, but in peace. As the sky deepened into dusk, the forest settled into its nighttime rhythm. Crickets began their quiet chorus, and the breeze softened to a whisper. Ananda and the Buddha returned to the Bodhi tree, its great limbs outstretched like arms holding the sky. Ananda lowered himself to the ground, the roots beneath him familiar now, a part of his breath. He lay on his side, drawing his robe close, the earth warm beneath him. The Buddha sat nearby, his presence as calm as the twilight. "Tonight," the Buddha said softly, "let your body rest without expectation. Let your thoughts drift without direction. There is nothing left to seek." Ananda nodded slowly. "I feel it. For the first time, I feel no need to ask, no need to grasp, just stillness." The Buddha's voice was barely above a breath. "Let the earth carry you. Let your breath carry you. Let this night hold you as gently as the sky holds the stars." Ananda closed his eyes. The aches in his limbs, the weariness in his muscles, none of it called for attention now. His body was tired, but not in pain. His mind was quiet, but not empty. He was full, with peace, with presence, with the tender weight of having arrived. The sounds of the forest surrounded him, the chirp of insects, the distant rustle of leaves, the faint call of an owl. They did not distract, they cradled him. In the space between one breath and the next, Ananda felt something dissolve. Not fear, not desire, but the constant reaching that had once lived inside him. He no longer needed to be anywhere but here. He no longer needed to be anything but himself. And so beneath the Bodhi tree, with the stars rising unseen overhead, Ananda surrendered not to sleep alone, but to trust. Trust in the ground beneath him. Trust in the breath within him. Trust in the path that had always been there, quietly waiting for him to stop searching and simply lie down. That night, as Ananda slept beneath the Bodhi tree, his breath slow and steady, a dream came to him, not vivid or loud, but soft and luminous, like moonlight filtering through mist. In the dream, there was no forest, no body, no name, only light. Not the blinding light of fire or sun, but a warmth that filled space without direction. It did not shine, it embraced. And within that light, Ananda felt no edges, no limits. He was not standing or sitting or lying down. He simply was. A presence moved within the light. It had no form, but it felt familiar, like the memory of a kindness long carried. It did not speak, but Ananda understood it. And the message was clear. You're not broken. You are not lacking. You are not late. You are here. You are enough. These words did not echo. They did not announce. They settled like morning dew on open hands. In the dream, Ananda felt the weight of every doubt he had ever known rise gently from him, like leaves lifted by wind. His blindness was not gone, but in the dream it no longer meant absence. It meant clarity, because there was nothing to distract him from what truly mattered. In this light, he felt the laughter of Meha, the silence of the Buddha, the earth beneath his steps, the sky above his prayers. All of it was here, inside this radiant stillness. And in that stillness, he rested, not as a man who had found the answer, but as one who had stopped asking. Not because the questions were wrong, but because the silence now answered them better than words ever could. As the dream began to fade, Ananda whispered, not with lips, but with the quiet of being, "Thank you." The light did not respond. It didn't need to. It remained like breath, like presence, like home. And when the first birds began to stir and the edge of dawn kissed the world, Ananda did not wake startled or searching. He woke as gently as he had dreamed, held by the same peace that had walked beside him all along. When Ananda opened his eyes, the forest was bathed in the soft light of morning. Birds moved gently through the trees, and the world seemed to hum with a quiet clarity. He sat up slowly, not because he was reluctant to move, but because there was no longer a need to rush. His body still ached in familiar places, but the aches were no longer burdens. They were companions, echoes of the path that had carried him here. The Buddha sat across from him, as still as dawn itself. Ananda offered a gentle bow. "I had a dream," he said, "but it felt more like remembering than imagining." The Buddha nodded. Sometimes truth comes to us when the mind is quiet enough to receive it. Ananda breathed in deeply, the morning air crisp and new. For so long, I believed there was something I lacked, some insight, some healing, some vision. But now I see there is nothing missing. The Buddha's voice was soft but certain. You have arrived, not at a place, but at a knowing. The truth you sought was never ahead of you. It was always within. Ananda smiled, not out of pride, but from a joy so still it felt like silence. He rose slowly and stretched his arms toward the sky, the light touching his face. I do not need to see the world to feel its beauty. I do not need answers to rest in peace. I only need to be present. The Buddha rose as well. They stood together, teacher and student, not as two separate beings, but as two parts of the same breath. The path that had once stretched before Ananda now curled behind him, not as something to measure, but as something to bless. He turned in the direction of home. He did not walk with urgency. He walked with reverence. Not because the journey had ended, but because he understood now it never truly began. It had always been here, always within. Each step forward was a return. And as the forest welcomed his leaving with the same gentleness it had offered his arrival, Ananda smiled. Not because he had seen the light, but because he had become it. The story ends, but the peace remains. So let go now. Let the day fall away. You've walked far enough. You've listened deeply. Now it's time to rest. Let your breath carry you into stillness, into light, into sleep. Good night, beautiful soul.